all our past lessons are recorded. Okay, today's lesson and Wednesday's lesson is based around trig and general trig. So trig of expressions, so trig expressions, trig identities, and trig equations. Okay, so that's going to be the main focus of today in terms of trig. It's normally questions 5 and 6 in paper 2. So it's trig from paper 2. Okay, so that is the focus for today. Let's get going. So basically, there are 5 main types of questions that you'll see in exams. And so let's just start by talking about that. Calculate the value of a trig expression without using a calculator. What is that code for normally? When they say without using a calculator, what's normally going to be involved? You can pop your hand up or put it in the chat. What's that code for? It's going to involve trig expressions. Any ideas, people of grade 11? Who feels like they may have a... So what this normally means is you're going to be using special triangles and or the reduction formula. So when you reduce a big, so an example would be if I gave you the cos of 330 and I said to you evaluate that without a calculator, the first step would be what is the cos of 330 reduced to? So that's my challenge for you right now. Who would like to explain to me how I reduce the cos of 330 to an acute angle? That's step 1. And then step 2 is how do I evaluate it? Be brave, people. You can do it. I believe in you. Or would you like me to give you a little refresher on what's called the cast diagram? So whenever I think of reducing an angle greater than 90, I think of the cast diagram. And I visualize 330 by thinking of 90, 180, 270, 330. Like that. Okay, let's go to Nalotando. Nalotando, what do you think we have to do here?
Hi, sir.
Hey, hey.
Okay, so using the cast diagram, you're going to determine in which quadrant is the 330 in, which is going to be in the 4th quadrant, which is 360 minus theta. And then from the cast diagram, we know that cos is positive in that quadrant. So you're going to say 360 minus the 330, which is going to give you 30 degrees. That is the acute angle.
You are winning at life. So basically, you get positive cos 30. Another way, that's fantastic. Thank you, Nalotando. Another way of visualizing this is saying 330 gives you that. What is the angle over here going to be? It's going to be 30. And that's what we get when Nalotando was saying 360 minus 330. And we get, and then the other thing is cos is always positive in this quadrant. That's why this must be positive. Now, so the cos of 330 is the same as the cos of 30, but now I want to evaluate that to a value. And we have to use what's called special triangles. Now, the special triangle that you kind of have to memorize is going to be this one. And it is going to be that. So using that special triangle and no calculators allowed, what is the value of the cos of 30? Yeah, Katleko, let's go to you. What do you think it's going to be?
Sir, I think that cos 30 is going to be opposite over adjacent. No,
Yeah, you're almost there.
adjacent over hypotenuse.
Perfect.
So it's going to be root 3 over 2.
It's going to be root 3 over 2. I completely agree with you. Love it. Love it. Okay, so you're going to see this happening a couple of times today where you're given, like you have to simplify an expression. And often you'll have to use the reduction formula and special triangles. That will pop up quite a lot. And there's a couple of different variations, but I just want to see that the basic idea is there for most of you. So give me a thumbs up if this broadly makes sense to you. Thumbs down if you feel like, oh my goodness, I've never seen this before. And now my temperature is starting to rise. Okay. So there is a mixture. I will do my best to accommodate everyone throughout the lesson, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so the voting is helpful. Thank you guys for voting. Whatever way you're voting, it's just helpful for me to get a sense of what is going on for you. So, like I said, when we talk about trig exam questions, the one type of question which we'll see later is this simplification question. The other type is expressing trig ratios in terms of a given variable. I'm not going to go through a whole deep one, but you'll see this later on. Then the other type of question is simplifying a trig expression. And that's where you're allowed to use your calculator, but it doesn't really help you that much. Then there's the prove a given identity question. So you work with the left-hand side and try and make it look like the right-hand side. And then that last type, solve a trig equation. Okay, so that's the sort of types of questions we want to give you a taste of. Yeah. So,
Mr. S, can you please unmute yourself?
Yeah, no problem. Let's just do a little bit of this type of thing. So I want to know, I'm giving you a question that is highlighted in yellow. So if tan of theta is less than 0 and cos of theta is less than 0, then which of these statements is true? And this is related to the cast diagram from earlier on that I'm just trying to check something. Which answer do you think is correct? So for those who are unfamiliar with this, the cast diagram allows us to simplify and know where different trig ratios are positive or negative. And the C is where the cos is positive and everything else is negative. A is where everything is positive. That's quadrant 1. Quadrant 2, sine is positive, everything is negative, and so on. So if tan is negative, it has to be either in this quadrant or this quadrant. And cos is negative in either this quadrant or this quadrant. And the only quadrant that I see that has 2 ticks is quadrant number 2. And basically, and these are angles between 90. So if you imagine this being 90, 180. So the answer is going to have to be B. Take a moment to see if you understand that. Okay. So Kakleko, what we're looking at is we're looking for a quadrant that allows both of these statements to be true. So when I did the green ticks are where tan is negative. Hold on, let me make sure I did this. Where is tan negative? The red ticks, tan is negative in quadrant 2 and quadrant 4. Okay, so that was the first bit of information. Then we also need a place where cos is negative, and cos is negative in this quadrant and this quadrant. So the only quadrant that can accommodate both those statements being true is quadrant 2. And angles in quadrant 2 are between 90 and 180. That's how I got B. Okay. Let's try and do question 1. I feel like this question can still help us. So if sine of theta is negative and cos of theta is positive, then which of these statements is true? So I'm giving you another chance to think about this idea. Which one do we think it's going to be? I'm going to use the same method as last time. When is sine negative? Sine is negative here and here because I avoid the A, which everything is positive in quadrant 1. Sine is positive in quadrant 2. Now I want sine to be negative, but I want cos to be positive. Cos is positive here and here. And so the answer must be quadrant 4. And quadrant 4 is going to be between 270 and 360. So the answer is D. And when I look at the chat, I am seeing quite a few Ds, which is good news for us. Okay, well, let's not move away from this quite yet. I want to ask you now to focus on, let's talk about the sine of 315. I first of all want to know, is it positive or is it negative? And you're not allowed to use your calculator. So put in the chat, is it positive or is it negative? Okay, now, how did we know it was negative? Well, we knew it was negative because it was in quadrant number 4, right? And in quadrant number 4, oh, my thing is being so weird again, my graphics tablet. So sine of 315 is going to be in quadrant 4. In this quadrant, sine is negative because remember, it's got a C here, cos is positive. So this will end up being negative. Okay, step 1. Step 2, I want to now use the reduction formula to reduce the sine of 315 to an equivalent expression. Now, using what we learned earlier in the lesson, what is the sine of 315 going to be? It's going to be negative something. But what is that something going to be? So if we think about the nearest horizontal, it's 360. And this angle over here, this big one, was 315. So this one over here could be quite important. So the correct answer is going to be minus the sine of 45. Minus the sine of 45. We've reduced an angle that was 315. We've reduced it down to 45. But when we reduced it, we had to make sure that something that was negative when it started, oh, sorry, that was a bad color. Something that was negative when it started had to stay negative after the reduction. Otherwise, it wouldn't be equal. Okay, let's try, because this is an important skill. I want you to reduce the cos of minus 215 to an acute angle for me. As part of that, you'll have to figure out if it's positive or negative. But can you work out the reduction of cos of minus 215? It feels to me minus 215 should be this angle. So I'm particularly interested in this angle over here. Lesego, let's go to you.
So the 215 lies in the third quadrant, not the...
Aha. But there's a sneaky, you're right, but there's something sneaky. It's a negative angle. So I deliberately, okay. So with negative angles, we go the opposite way around. But I like, this is exactly it. So when you start going this way, you end up being in quadrant 2. Do you think it's going to be positive or negative, Lesego?
Negative.
Yeah, negative, exactly. So this will be negative, and then it's still going to be cos, and then I can see in the chat, many people are saying minus the cos of 35, because this is going to be 35, and the nearest horizontal was minus 180. Yeah. So minus, if you think about 180 and then 35, you get up to your 215. Okay. Let's try. So, okay, I've lost a couple of you. Let's try the third. What we're always doing. Okay, let me just do a little summary quickly. When we use the reduction formula, if you fall into different quadrants, you're going to have different forms. You might have seen this drawing before. So these can help you reduce a angle because these are incorporating the nearest horizontal. If you're in quadrant 2 or quadrant 3, can you see that the nearest horizontal is 180? But if you're in quadrant 4, the nearest horizontal is 360. So let me show you, let me do one for you, and then you can do the last one. So say, for example, I want to reduce the tan of 215. The first thing I have to ask myself is it positive or negative? Now, if I want to visualize the angle of 215, I'm going to draw it. So there's 90, there's 180, and there's 215. So I'm going to stop at that point. And normally, when you evaluate a trig ratio like 215, you actually have to have a triangle that is related to this trig ratio because trig is based on triangles. Okay, now, if I think of the cast diagram, I'm going to suggest that this ends up being positive because 215 is in quadrant 3. So give me a thumbs up if you understand why why the tan of 215 is positive. Okay, now, if you look at 215, 215 is being symbolized by this. I'm not going to go, well, the one thing I could do is this. I could say, I know it's going to be tan. All angles in this quadrant have the form 180 plus x. Now, that's going to mean this is 180 plus 45. And so when we reduce it, it's just going to reduce to plus the tan of 45. The way I like to sometimes say it is to say how far is 215, sorry, not going to be 45, I lie. 215 is going to be 35. And the way I like to think about it is to say, if this thing is 215, shouldn't this angle over here be the difference between the nearest horizontal and the angle is 35 degrees. And so I get positive tan of 35. Bonga, I absolutely agree with you. It is 35. So what you do is you first ask yourself, is it positive or negative? Then you ask yourself, then you write down the trig ratio that you're using. And then you ask yourself, how far away is it from the nearest horizontal axis? Katlego, what's your question? While Katlego asks the question, if the rest of you could go on to D. I want you to reduce the cos of 390. Yeah.
Hello, sir.
Hey, hey.
How are you on this lovely Monday?
I'm good, as I can be on Mondays. Yes.
So, sir, I want to ask a question regarding number 3B, the cos
Okay.
of negative 215 degrees.
Yeah. What do you want to ask?
Yes. If to reduce that question, will I be wrong to say cos of negative 215 plus 360 degrees? Because if I do it on the diagram, I'll still land on the same spot. Will I be wrong?
No, you'll be fine. Yeah, it's fine. So
Oh.
you saying you could go minus 215. So there's a couple of ways you can do it, but you saying you change it to 145, and then from 145 you get to tan 35 as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's completely fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Okay, so cos 390, what do we get? It's going to be in quadrant 4. No, it's not going to be in quadrant 4. It's going to be quadrant 1 because it goes the whole way around. Yeah. So it goes the whole way around. And so it ends up in this quadrant. So it's positive. It's going to be cos. And then how far away is that from the nearest horizontal? It's just 30. And so we get cos of 30. Okay, so I think that we have definitely made some progress with using the reduction formula. I see that another student in the messages also wrote it like this: 390 minus 360, which gives you the same answer, cos 30. Okay, awesome. Let's look at an exam question that's a bit like this to help us. Let's have a look. Let's look for an exam question where I can kind of show you how this gets tested together. Okay. I want you to do for me, it says simplify without using your calculator. I want you guys to simplify this for me. So using what you've learned so far today, I want you to simplify that for me. Now, it's a bit of a mixture of questions, but yeah. And then, yeah, if you have questions, you can ask. Otherwise, I'm just going to grab a glass of water while you get going on that. Yeah, Lesego, what's your question?
There's a very high chance I might get this wrong, but is the final simplified answer -1 times cos 30 times negative cos 10, negative tan 30?
Okay, you're on the right track, but the one thing is, if you're given like the tan of 150, for example, and you get a 30, you can actually simplify it using the special triangles. So don't forget, you can still simplify it further. So you are on the right track, but you can also evaluate certain things without using a calculator. That was sort of the key word. That's the one thing that from just quickly hearing your answer, you want to still evaluate those parts.
Right.
Okay. So if we look at the different, there's actually 4 little parts to this question, huh? And so that's what you're trying to solve. You're trying to initially figure out what those 4 parts are. And the first bit should be that. This should be that. Should be that. And that should stay the same. Okay. Yeah, let's go to some questions. Fagelo, let's go to you.
Hi, sir, and hi to everyone.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask my answer. I'm not too sure if it's right, but I got, okay, it's not fully the full answer, but then I got √3/2 multiplied by 1/√3. So where do I go?
That.
Yeah.
Okay. If that's right, and I'll pull up the answer now, that would cancel out because you're being multiplied.
Yeah.
Let's look at the answer because I think, yeah. So you would get, the final answer is 1/2, which is what you would get here.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you.
Right. Doing well there. So let's take a moment. Okay, I see lots of halves in the questions as well. So what you had to do, because I've left out a step here, is you cancel out this and this. Okay, when you cancel out that, what you're left with is the 2 negatives on top multiplied to give you a positive. And so all you're really left with, from what I can see, is the cos of 30 times the tan of 30. Because the 2 negatives become a positive, and all you have to do is evaluate that. And these are special triangles, right? So you just have your special triangle. So 30, 60. You do have to memorize these, 1 and 2. So the cos of 30 is just going to be √3/2. And then the tan of 30 is 1/√3. And that's why we get 1/2. Yeah. Kakleko, let's go to you.
So what if I did it kind of differently? Instead of saying cos 30 times 1030, so I simplified 1030 and I wrote sine 30 over cos 30, and then cos 30 divides cos 30, and then it gives you sine 30, sir.
Okay, and you get the same answer though. I know what you've done. That's clever. Yes, that's perfect. Well done. You'll get the same answer. In maths, there's always more ways to do it. In fact, that's even more efficient. So that is good. Okay, I tell you what. And a couple of people have been saying the same thing in the chat. Now, we've been going for half an hour. We've done some good work, but I know what we need is a break. So what I want is everyone just to stand up for a second and just stretch out and just turn your cameras on for a second so we can all see each other's lovely faces and give ourselves some, give someone else a virtual high five. There we go. And then
come on, guys, we like to see your faces. Please put your cameras on.
We want to see you guys. We want to feel like all the humans are on the other side. It's not like the bots taking over the world. There are real people here with us.
Shout out to Perhello, shout out to Lisejo, shout out to Shisana. Don't be shy, guys. Don't miss out on this trip.
This is your maths family. You don't need to be shy, guys. You don't need to be fucking shy. He's like,
shout out to Akona.
oh, goodness, that stretch feels good.
and maybe shake it out.
Check it out. Yeah. Okay. Oh, I cannot tell you how much better that feels. Sure. So let us do a little bit of a brain break, because it's always good to give your brain a chance to. So I want to know what a kitten plus a lion plus a chicken is. Off we go. What do we think? So many of you have got the 20. I see that. And then some of you are putting the answers in there. I like it. I like it. So basically 2 lions must give you 64. If you think about adding 20, so 1 lion must be 32. Okay, Boitemelo, you're looking like you've got it there. So this must be 30. Because 32 minus 30 gives me 2. And so my final answer will be, drum roll, please, I get 82. Nicely done, Trish. Nicely done, Sihao. Let's nicely done, Boitemelo. And Akonio Ville. Well done. Looking good, guys. Looking good. Okay, so we've had our little brain break. Make sure you have another little stretch before we go into the second half of our lesson. As, it's always good to give your body a break. So let's do one more question like this before I move on. I really feel like it's almost guaranteed you'll get a question like this in your exam. And so let's do question number 2. See if you can simplify that without a calculator. And then if you need to ask questions as we go, please feel free to. What are you going to get? Hmm. Like there's 6 mini little questions. Well, Kanya, what I'm going to do is I'll go through each of these pieces in the second question. I'm not sure this is going to be, let me take the same ideas and apply them in the second question. Okay. So the first part I'm going to look at is the cos of 750. And as far as I can tell, that's a big number, but it just means going around twice. And so if you think about 360, 720, 750, basically 750 is just 30 degrees past 720, and it's in quadrant number 1. And so everything is positive. So this very first thing should be plus cos 30, or like that. So have a look and see if you understand how I got cos 30 for that. And then for the second part, 315, that gets me in this quadrant. But the problem is I'm talking about tan. And so tan will be negative in this quadrant. And then we ask ourselves, how far away is 315 from the nearest horizontal? It's 45. So we get negative tan of 45. So that's the first two parts. If you've got a question now, please raise your hand and you can come online and we'll discuss it with you. But that's the hints to see you're on the right track. Yeah, Kakleko, what's your question?
I just want to know, why is cos 30 positive and not negative? Because it was lying in the second quadrant. Unless I'm wrong.
Yeah, so if you look at the cos of 30, okay, so if you look at 750, right? If you want to visualize what 750 is, wouldn't the first 360 would be one way round? The second 360 gets me all the way to 720. Now, if I go 30 degrees more, that is going to give me the angle of 750. But within the angle of 750, the 30 degrees, that's how far away 750 is from the nearest horizontal. And in this quadrant, all trig ratios are positive. That's why there's an A. Does that help?
Yes, it does. Thank you, Sam.
Pleasure. So you have to be, with a big numbers, you just have to think, how many multiples of 360 can I take away? So maybe another way of doing it is to say, think about the cos of 750 as it's in quadrant 1. So the cos of 750 minus 720, because that's two multiples. What will catch a couple of you is that the cos of negative theta is the same as the cos of theta. And the reason that is that a negative angle of theta is in this quadrant. So if that was negative theta, it's in quadrant 4 and cos is positive there. And how far away is it from the nearest horizontal? It's theta away. So it's just cos of theta, positive cos theta. When you are done, just say done in the chat so that I know when I must reveal answers and when I must say more stuff, or if I need to wait a little bit longer, which I suspect I probably do. Okay. Kakleko, where are you? Paul, where are you stuck? What's your question?
Sir, I'm not really stuck. I just want to know, like, where did you get how did cos theta become positive?
Okay, so when we think of negative angle, a negative angle just means it's going in the opposite direction. So it's going in this direction. Are you with me on that part?
Yes.
Okay, so now imagine you're trying to visualize this angle, and all that you need to think about is it's negative theta, right? It's something negative theta because it's going in that direction. Would you agree that we're in the fourth quadrant?
Yes.
Okay, now in the fourth quadrant, cos is always positive. So you know that it's going to be positive cos something. And then ask yourself, how far away is it from the horizontal? It's just theta away.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Pleasure. So 360 minus theta, this is also going to be cos theta. And this is going to be minus sine 60. And this is going to be sine of theta. This is a bit of a tricky one, so I'll spend some time on it because it's no picnic. Yeah, clear.
Sir,
yes.
I'm stuck.
Ah. Don't worry, you're not alone. You're not alone. Yeah.
So I'm stuck at cos 30 times tan 45 over sine 60 times sine theta.
Okay, the good news is, hey, you've already got most of your marks, eh? So even if you don't get to the perfect ending, just remember in these questions, like you don't have to get every single thing right. You can still get 4 out of 6 or 5 out of 6. So one of the key things that's going to have to happen is there's going to have to be some canceling. So that's the one thing. The other thing is that there's something called a co-ratio. And what a co-ratio would allow you to do is change the sign. Okay, the other thing I notice is there's 2 negatives. So that negative and that negative will cancel out. So that's also gone. So life is getting simpler. Now, what I would really like to do is I want to focus quickly on the sine of 60. Your life would be good if I could change the sine of 60 to a cos. Does anybody remember how to do that? What is the sine of 60 the same as if I use what's called a co-ratio? Okay, it's going to be the same as the cos of 30, yes. So that is really helpful because what that means is that this and this would cancel out. Let me give you the whole answer because I think I'm writing a little bit too much. And so let me actually show you the reduction. And let's see that you're okay with most of it. So we've got the cos of 30, all good. We've got minus the tan. Ooh, yeah, the minus is fine. And I've got the cos of 30 here. So we're all good there. Happy days, happy days, happy days. Now, what does need to happen is that, and you can see this lonely sine theta just hanging out here, which is still left. And then you have to evaluate the tan of 45. Now, the tan of 45 is basically a special, now why is there a negative? Oh, the negatives go away, yeah. So the tan of 45 is a special triangle as well. And so the tan of 45 looks like this. And so it's going to be O over A. So this tan of 45 is replaced with a 1. So that is a 1. And then the other parts get rid of. Now, where else did we lose something? Did I do something wrong here? Have a look. I got 1 over sine theta. Okay, no, people are getting 1 over sine theta here. So cos of 30 minus tan 45, cos of theta minus sine of 60, sine of theta. Yes. These cancel out. Oh, and this also cancels out. That's why I'm getting confused. The negatives go away, and I'm left with 1 over sine theta. Yeah. Okay, Figueroa, let's go to your question.
Yeah, so I got wow. I got -1 over sine theta. But how do the negatives cancel out?
So the negatives cancel out because there are only really two negatives in this whole question. The one negative is over here. It's the minus tan of 45. And then there's the minus sine of 60. So there are only two negatives in the whole question. So they cancel each other out.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Pleasure. Okay. So that was a toughie, but I think I think we can say goodbye to trig. Well, do you want to do one more? Thumbs up if you want to do one more of these. It feels like we've committed today, so maybe we should just do one more. Thumbs down if you want to do something different. And then Suhal, what's your question?
Hi, sir.
Hey.
So I want to know, how did the sign become negative?
Okay.
By the last step.
By the last step. Okay. While I talk through this question, can everybody go and do number 3? And then I'm going to talk through number 2 for a little bit too, but the rest of you can start with number 3. Okay. So how did I lose you? Where did it become negative? The sign become negative?
Yes.
Okay. The reason it became negative was because of the sine of 300. So let's look at the sine of 300 on the cast diagram. So if I go, would you agree with me that the sine of 300 is in quadrant 4?
Yes.
Now, is sine positive or negative in that quadrant?
It is negative.
Okay, awesome. It's negative. Now, I want to know, how far is 300 from the nearest horizontal? What's the nearest horizontal?
60.
Yeah, got it. Can you see now why it's minus sine 60?
Yes, thank you, sir.
Pleasure. Pleasure. Okay. Let me make this.
You can do this, guys. We believe in you.
So these questions are normally like at least sort of 7, 8 marks. Yeah, like it's almost guaranteed they'll give you a question like this. So if we put this question in the bank tonight, then that's good. Oh, I get negative. I'm going to leave this one because this is important. Okay. I've put one of the ratios in yellow because of the fact that I want you to spot something. What do you think would be a really useful thing to change the sine 104 to? Something a little bit spicy. Like what? Everything else feels pretty routine. Bonga, I agree with you. Bonga says it's co-functions. Co-functions. So it's almost like it's in some ways, it could make my life a lot easier because this cos 14 over here, if it was connected, I just need to know how it's connected. So what would the sine of 104 be if I reduced it off the vertical? Now sine is positive in quadrant 2, so this should just be positive cos 14. Now those who haven't got good practice in co-ratios, think about that, go back and practice that, but this is the same as the cos of 14. Which means that can cancel out with that. Yeah, Leseko, let's go to you.
So why is the tan of 480 converted to the tan of 20? Shouldn't it be negative 10?
Ooh, you know what? You've caught me. You've caught me because I was thinking it should be going. I was having a moment. 360. Now from 360 we get to 450, and then 450 gets me into the second quadrant, which means this is completely wrong. Thank you very much, Leseko. That was a great spot. And so I need to ask myself, if I'm at 480, where is the nearest? So 360, that's 520. So even then, let me make that sure I've got that right. Even I'm having a bit of a moment here. So 360.
It's basically like
540. Yeah. So the next one would be 540. And so how close is it? It's going to be 60 away. So did you guys get minus tan of 60? So think about if I wanted to visualize the 480, it goes all the way around for 360. Then it gets to 450. That's another 90. And then to get to 480 gets me here. But how far away is it from the horizontal? It's here. That was a toughie.
Mr.
So
East,
now, yeah.
there's a question from Katlego.
Yes, Katlego, what is your question?
So you lost me on the co-functions of the sine 104 degrees.
Okay, when you talk about co-functions, we don't go to the nearest horizontal, we go to the nearest vertical. So if we were to visualize 104, 104 would be over here, but the triangle wouldn't be formed with the horizontal, it would be formed with the vertical. Now, if you ask yourself, the sine of 104, can you see that this triangle is, so this is going to be 14, and do you see that sine is positive in this quadrant, in quadrant number 2? So sine of 104 is positive because it's in quadrant 2. Now, when you use a co-ratio, all you say is you say, okay, well, what's the co-ratio of sine? It's cos. And how far away is 104 from the nearest vertical? It's 14 degrees away. So the process for reduction formula when using co-ratios is you go, where is the nearest vertical? And you use that in the same way that in normal reduction formula, you use the horizontal.
Oh, okay. But sir, aren't like co-ratios complementary?
Yes. So if you think about it this way, you go cos of 104 minus 90. So that's where the 90 comes. They are complementary, but then trig functions repeat themselves, so it gets a bit more tasty after that. But the same idea is happening as before. It's just you're using the vertical, and when you use a co-ratio, you change from the original ratio, which was sine, to the cosine or the co-ratio of sine. Okay, let's finish this lesson off by looking at the answer for number 3, because it feels like we have been really going for it with these questions. Okay, so the final answer is going to be 3/2. I'll try and see if I can get a bit more of my working in the frame. So I should get 3/2.